What was the Counter-Reformation supposed to counter or count? Were Catholics to kill all Protestants on sight? Were the Tridentine Reforms all about tridents? Did the Reformation really make Europe go Baroque? I am Professor Jerome Markenberg, and I'll answer this and other questions right after this. Hi, Professor Ark here, and I've been teaching a wide variety of history courses at colleges across this country for the past 30 years. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about what the heck was the Counter-Reformation to counter, or count. What were the Tridentine Reforms, and did they have anything to do with tridents? And did the church really begin to preach simplicity for its followers, for Catholics to follow, at the same time building churches with tons of marble and gold gilt? At the end, I'll have the wrap-up quote on this video. But first, make sure to click like, share, and subscribe, and that little bell thingy, so I can continue to bring you more great videos just like this one. Now, during the Council of Trent, called in Latin Tridentio, from which you get the term Tridentine Reforms. No, they didn't have anything to do with tridents. But the Council of Trent started in 1543, well after the start of the Reformation in 1517, and continued until 1561. And you might think they had a tremendous amount of work got on to do that, and they did get a lot, but really, the first 20 years, well, first 15 years really, was all about setting the agenda. Yes, it took them 12 to 15 years just to figure out what they were going to argue about. Then about another 2 or 3 years figuring out where everybody would sit at the council. Ridiculous. Now, the Council of Trent wound up agreeing on reforms to wean the masses back. And these key changes in doctrine and practice lasted until the reforms of Vatican II in the 1960s. And the key features of these were as follows. 1, complete papal supremacy, given to ensure that local clergy could not resist reforms. Yes, it's hard to believe, but in the Middle Ages, while the popes claimed supremacy, that was really only theory. In practice, the local bishops were semi-independent. All right, number 2 for the reform, bishops and priests given great authority to control their flocks, their parishioners, the other Catholics, far greater than they had in the Middle Ages. 3, obligatory Sunday Mass for all Catholics. Yes, before this, even in the Middle Ages, the so-called Age of Faith, you are not required to go to Mass every week on Sunday. You really only had to go twice a year, Christmas and Easter. Most people, most of the Catholics, probably 95, 98, 99%, nonetheless, not only went on every Sunday, they went every frickin' day. But they weren't required to do so. Now you're required to do so. Number 4, marriages were valid only if done by a priest in a church before witnesses. And again, it's just hard to believe, but in the Middle Ages, and you could see this. I'll talk more about this in my lecture, all about my video, all about family gender, and marriage in the Middle Ages. Check that one out. Just like you could check the one about Sunday Mass and stuff in my lecture on popular worship in the Middle Ages. Anyway, to get married, you did not need to have a priest present. It did not have, the marriage ceremony did not have to take place in a church. And in fact, you did not have to have any witnesses present. Now, normally people would, in fact, be married by a priest in a church and would have their family members and friends around them to help celebrate, but it wasn't required. In part, this was because Europeans had really gotten used to the fact this is the old Germanic and the Roman way of doing things. It was a purely private affair, and people would just shack up with each other and leave whenever they wanted to, and the church wanted to put an end to that. So if you said, and this is again more in my video on marriage in the Middle Ages, if, for example, you said to your sweetie, "Hey, babe, let's go and have sex," and she or he says, "Okay," and then you consummate it, the church began to say that that constitutes a marriage. This, of course, caused numerous problems. If you wanted to get out of a marriage, all you had to do was say, "Yes, I was previously married. Did you give the words of present consent?" You have to say yes in the now, here and now, not in the future. "Yes, I asked her to, and she said yes." "Did you consummate the marriage afterwards?" "Yes." "Okay, were there any witnesses?" "No." "Was there a priest?" "No." "Was there a written record?" "No." "Hey, guess what? You're married." Which means your current marriage is invalid. And this would cause endless problems. It was a great way to get out of a marriage without having to pay child support or anything. This was also a new requirement. Under the Tridentine Reforms, parish registers were now required to record burials, baptisms, and marriage. Again, a written record was now required. Because by the 16th century, Europeans had gotten to the point where they trusted written records as being accurate. In the early Middle Ages, most of the Middle Ages, it was an oral memorial society. All knowledge was passed down orally and held in memory, and nobody quite trusted writing because they felt it could be easily forged. This again, you can find out more about this in my video on books and manuscripts and education in the Middle Ages. Anyway, another new requirement, baptisms required godparents in good standing with the church. Of course, nobody back then would have asked your Jewish cousin to be the godparent of your child, because the whole point of being a godparent, it wasn't a ceremonial thing or a happy thing or to give you presents once in a while, to ensure that that child would be raised as a good Catholic. So you couldn't name a known atheist, assuming that one even existed, or in Muslim Spain, a Muslim, or, of course, anybody who was Jewish. And then, in this point, you couldn't name anybody who was a Calvinist or a Lutheran, Anglican, a Zwinglian, whatever. You had to be a good Catholic. Confirmation was made mandatory for young adults. Before then, it was only infant baptism. The Lutherans and most of the other Protestants began to accept this idea of sort of an adult baptism. So the church, it's a way to confirm you in your faith, make sure you know everything about Catholicism that the church needs you to know. Mandatory weekly individual confessions for all adults. Before then, you just have a mass. Everybody says, yes, we all forgive each other, blah, blah, blah. But now you have to go every single week and tell the priest everything. Individual. This is also a great way for the priest to find out what you're thinking. Are you straying? Also, finally, the Inquisition, which begins in the Middle Ages, and it was bad to begin with. The Inquisition, remember, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Anyway, Inquisition was given new and broad powers to root out and suppress heresy. These Tridentine Reforms instituted a new devotional intensity, incorporating mystical elements with liturgy, architecture, art, music, and song. In some ways, similar to what the Byzantines had, the Greek Orthodox had. It's all designed to convey God's majesties and give worshipers a taste of heaven in their lifetime. And this is comparison to most Protestant churches, which were stripped of all the gilt and the marble. The pictures were all whitewashed over. The idea there should be no graven images, no pictures, no statues. They were quite bare. Whereas you go into the Catholic Church, I mean, this is kind of the norm. And you look upwards and you see the saints looking on high on you, as they had in the Middle Ages, but even more so now. Even more gold and gilt. And then you have the music. It's like your idea is to, as the Greek Orthodox are doing, as if you're in heaven. And this is a great heaven. It's not a boring heaven. It's a fun heaven. Mysticism, which had also appeared in the Middle Ages, though it had appeared rather late, 14th century, was invigorated. This was inspired by St. Teresa of Avila, there she is, also here too, and St. John of the Cross. New monastic or friar orders appeared, while others were reformed, such as the Theatines, the Capuchins, the Paulins, and the Ursulines, led by, Chuck Borromeo, St. Phil Neri, and St. Frankie de Sales. The most important of all these new orders, though, was the Jesuits, founded by St. Ignatius de Loyola. And their members established schools, colleges, and universities to train both future Jesuits and the laity, the non-clergy, in Catholic doctrine. I know, I went to a Loyola university. Don't get me started. All in all, the fervor of both laity and clergy was rejuvenated, and broad swaths of Europe were reclaimed for Roman Catholicism. In this map, you can kind of see the pink are all the Lutheran states. The darker pink are the Calvinist. Zwinglians, we'll talk more about him on, of course, the lecture on the Protestants, mostly in Switzerland. And the Roman Catholics are in blue, and this sort of shaded stipple blue shows the areas that have been reclaimed by the Catholics. This isn't entirely true. Yeah, Osnabrück right up here. Actually, some of my ancestors came from up here. And of course, broad swaths of Poland. Bohemia, Moravia was still kind of split. Anyway, though, it was reclaimed for Roman Catholicism. The wrap-up quote. Quote, "It is to be desired that those who undertake the office of bishop should understand that they are called, not to their own convenience, not to riches or luxury, but to labors and cares for the glory of God. Bishops shall be content with modest furniture, a frugal table and diet, and that in the rest of their manner of living and in their whole house there be nothing seen which does not manifest simplicity, zeal toward God, and a contempt of vanities. They are strictly forbidden to enrich their own kin or servants out of the revenues of the church, and what has been said of bishops, the same is to be observed by all who hold ecclesiastical benefices, whether secular or regular, each according to the nature of his rank." Unquote. These are several of the canons of the Council of Trent from 1560. Let me know what you think of this quote, whether it's true or not, whether it worked or not, in the comments section below. Also, what you liked about this short video, and what other historical topics or subjects you'd like to see in future videos. Be sure to hit like, share, and subscribe, as it will help me bring you more great videos. And click on that little bell thingy so you'll know when the next History Waits for No One video is posted. If you want to know more, there are recommended studies on this topic in the description below, along with other ways to connect with me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the past.